Hi, I'm Chloe Anderson of Nubian Nurturance, and today we're going to talk about breastfeeding your baby versus formula food. So, I am in training to be a lactation counselor, and I am for breastfeeding your babies. Most people start off attempting to breastfeed, but they get discouraged, and the number one reason is poor latching. Um, as a counselor, I will prepare my moms to breastfeed prior to birth so that they'll have all of the information and know all of the triggers that may discourage them from breastfeeding. I have assisted in too many births where the mom was enthused about breastfeeding, and by the time the lactation consultant got there, she had been discouraged because the baby wasn't latched. I didn't feel like she was supported enough by the nursing staff that was present. And when she told the lactation consultant that she had given the baby the formula, even though lactation and nursing is their emphasis, they didn't seem too enthused about encouraging mom to breastfeed. They didn't say anything like, oh, it's not too late, let me show you. They were just like, okay, and walked away. It gives me the impression, which is what I've heard before, that it's not really promoted, at least among African Americans. There are so many benefits to breastfeeding. Babies are healthier, they have stronger immunity systems, and stronger brains. So babies that are breastfed tend to be smarter than babies that are not breastfed. And babies that are breastfed tend to have less colds and have stronger health, not just through infancy, but throughout life. So there are many benefits. Formula was not made to be mainstream. Formula was made for when the mom gave the baby up for an adoption. So, more than likely, the new mom didn't have milk to give the baby. She wasn't able to nurse, or if the mom passed away during birth. Once again, the new mom wasn't able to, more than likely, didn't have milk to give the baby. It has a lot of unhealthy things in it in the long run, but in order to generate more money because we live in a capitalistic country, it was promoted for its convenience. Um, Slavery had ended, and white women were not used to nursing their babies, and a lot of them weren't interested. And so the convenience promotion marketing was right up their alley. And so, of course, because you had to have money to buy this formula, it was looked at as a poverty thing for those that had to nurse their babies. So as soon as blacks and Latinas felt like they can afford to nurse their babies or to give their babies formula, they did, which most can't because so many people get WIC in order to afford the formula. And there's two things that are under lock and key in the grocery store because of the high amount of theft, and that is cigarettes and baby formula. So obviously, a lot of us can't afford it or don't want to pay the high cost. Another benefit, not only as far as not having to physically nurse, but not having to feed the baby as often because formula sits on the stomach of the baby longer, and so the baby doesn't get up and eat as much. People think that he must be full or it is as equal, if not better, because you don't have to feed the baby as much. But I liken it to you could feed your baby or your toddler mashed potatoes, pasta, and rice and bread. It will weigh heavier on the stomach, but that doesn't mean your baby's body has as much nutrition as if they had fruits and vegetables. Fruits and vegetables digest easier, so of course you are going to get hungry faster. And the same thing with breast milk. the baby's digestive system is made to digest breast milk, so it's going to digest easier, which is going to make the baby hungrier, but you'll get better results as far as building a more nutritious child. Formulas keep your baby stomach full longer is because your baby's stomach, his digestive system, her digestive system is working harder to digest the formula because it was not necessarily made to digest something of that substance. So remember, your baby's digestive system, their esophagus is the size of their pinky, not your pinky, but their pinky. And so when you put this heavy substance in their system that we are not originally created to digest, it's making your baby digestive system work harder, which, yes, is keeping them full longer, but it's not healthier in the long run. The same thing with table food. It's recommended that babies don't eat table food until they're 6 months. We as a people have traditionally decided to give the baby cereal earlier or food earlier because we want to keep that baby full longer and not have to stop and feed them more. But if you are going for a nutritious baby as opposed to what's most convenient, and I'm not knocking that because, a lot of us are multitasking with our newborns, but I'm saying to prepare during pregnancy, your support system, and when you're family planning, making sure that this is something that you're ready for, making the baby's nutrition a priority. You're going to have to feed the baby more often, but you don't want to give the baby too much food. You don't want to give the baby food early and impact their digestive system, or somehow down the line there's an increased chance of them getting diabetes or being overweight because something that was done during the foundational time in their life, that they're so used to being full all the time that they don't know how to eat as toddlers, as teenagers, as adults without being stuffed, because that was the foundation of them always being stuffed and not necessarily having the nutritious things in their system, but anything that's just going to give them that weight down heavy feel, that when they get a light meal, they don't even feel complete or content because they've been working on a stuffed system since birth. I recommend before you have your baby or immediately after, and this is not just for the moms, it takes a village. This is for the dads and the grandparents to research how to make your own baby food. The baby food that's on the shelves has tons of preservatives and is not the healthiest of things. Um, Once the baby is able to eat puree, it is actually easy to make food for your 6 month, 1 year old toddler. Baked sweet potato, easy go to. You can bake that sweet potato, mash it up, and the baby will love it. Put a little cinnamon in it, they don't need the sugar, and maybe some pineapple juice as opposed to butter, and the baby will love it. It's sweet and it's very nutritious. You could do the same thing with carrots, bake them until they're soft. You don't want to boil too much because a lot of times we're boiling the nutrition out of the food. It's getting soft, but it's boiling the nutrition out. So that's why we need to do research on how to prepare our baby's food, not just boil it till it's bland or boil it until it's, once again, we're just filling the baby up, but we're not building a nutritious temple. Unfortunately, there has been an increase of children getting cancer, and God forbid if your child gets any type of diagnosis that they don't have a strong system to ward off whatever that attack is. Faith without works is dead. Of course, we're going to pray and we're going to believe, but the purpose of food is to build a strong body for energy and nutrition. And so you want to make sure that you're doing the fruits and vegetables in a very healthy way and removing or eliminating or reducing preservatives. You know, if you have to have a can or two in case of emergency, or if you're taking a baby somewhere and you didn't have time to prepare the meal prior, but to just have that as a staple, I don't recommend that for your child. And Pinterest gives you a lot of information. Google, or I like to joke and say Googler, gives you a lot of information, and so does YouTube. So research how you're going to feed your baby. I recommend keeping your child away from McDonald's as long as possible. I recommend keeping your child away from fast foods and sweets. Um, you can make applesauce. I have made applesauce for my children. I jar it up and put it in my mason jars. That's a nice little snack. You can warm it up if you have to. I think I've shared with you guys, I have not had a microwave in, I would say, maybe about 5 years. I do have a toaster oven. Of course, there's always the top of the stove and the actual oven. So there are ways. It takes a little more effort, but if we're doing family planning, you know, we want to give our child the best education. You want to give them the best foundation in that food. And starting with breastfeeding, if you can, for as long as you can, at least a year is recommended. Some people do it for 6 months, 3 months, 2 weeks. Give it a try. I highly recommend. Do your research, no judgment, just encouragement here. I do promote breastfeeding and giving your child healthy foods while they're toddlers. When I started my kids out, they were 1, 3, and 5. We did brown rice, wheat bread, brown pasta. If they get it from the foundation, you don't have to convert them over. And even if your kids are past those ages, I would do half and half, half brown, half a pot of brown rice, half a pot of white rice to kind of wean them off. The same thing with the pasta, half a pot of brown pasta, half a pot of white pasta, kind of wean them off. And do some baked potatoes more than the white potatoes. And I would put flaxseed oil in their apple juice in the sippy cup so they can't even see it and they can't even taste it. And just find different healthy ways to give your kids. If you start them off with the sugar-free applesauce, the sugar-free jello, things like that, when they grow up, they won't even know the difference because that's all that they know. Um, I'll come back another time and talk about what we do when we take them to grandma's house, godparents' house, other people's house that are not always going to adhere to your plan when you say don't give my baby cookies and your babies have cookies because they've gone somewhere else. We'll talk about that another time. But let's just start with foundation. Just transition in your mind. Just think about it. Do some research. You don't have to go cold turkey. Don't just go by what I say, but just start thinking, what are the different ways that I could do things during this pregnancy, the next pregnancy, or with this group of children at this stage over the summer. Do your research and say, okay, school starts and going forward, we're going to not do whole milk. We're going to do skim milk, or we're not going to do cow's milk. We're going to do almond milk. And my kids had a fit when I took them off that cow's milk. But when I dropped them off on on the college campus and took them grocery shopping, by that time they were asking, "Can you get me some coconut milk or some almond milk?" They had transitioned, and they're doing that now. So I was very proud. I talked to my oldest son. He lives in Dallas, and he said he was meal prepping for work, 23 years old. And I asked him what was he preparing, and he said he was baking him some salmon and baked sweet potato and string beans, which is what I would give him. And I was just impressed because how many 23-year-olds are doing that on their own, taking initiative. But that is how I got them to start eating, changing. You know, they fought me, but I was like, I gave you the unhealthy food and it impacted you, and now it's my responsibility to change you back. When you become grown, you can do what you want to do, but here I want to at least teach you something new. So once again, Chloe Anderson of Nubian Nurturance, talking about breastfeeding, um, talking about making your baby's food and transitioning your children to healthier foods or starting them off foundationally to healthy foods. What are some of the things that you do? How do you feel about what I said? Leave a comment, share, subscribe to this video. I'm going to do a part 2 and talk about some other things on how we transition our children in their eating.